Green Bay Live. Once again, welcome everybody watching at home on the Llama or watching after the fact on YouTube. This is the Green Bay City Council non-partisan debate. It's brought to you by the Green Bay Llama and gathered on Broadway. Once again, your hosts this time for District 10, Community Advocate Rhonda Siddicow, Pastor Jerry Bader, Samaritan's Heart Ministries.
Welcome back to the Green Bay City Council Non-Partisan Candidate Forum. Here we have Mark Steuer with us. He's an incumbent. He's running to continue to serve District 10 on the City Council. Unfortunately, Mark Steuer's opponent, Eric Kuzma, declined our invitation. So we'll be just you today, and I'll be running through the parameters of the forum. You'll receive the opportunity to have an opening statement. You will ask questions, and then you can respond in 2-minute responses. After that, you will have the questions. You will have an closing statement opportunity as well. We have 9 questions for you that were vetted publicly, as well as Jerry and I came up with some ourselves. Do you have any questions, Mark?
No, I don't, Rhonda, but thank you both Rhonda and Jerry and Jason and the Llama for putting this event on. I do think it is important, as some of the other candidates have mentioned, to have dialogue, to have democracy in action. And I'm sorry my opponent didn't show up. I would have liked to have that opportunity. But I've sat through a few of these today and they've been very good. So thank you.
So you can begin with your opening statement. Go right ahead.
Well, where do you start? I moved to Green Bay in 1981. I was a cartographer. A lot of people don't know what that is. My friend's wife thought I was someone who made cartoons. It's actually a glorified name for a map maker. I did that for 25 years at the city of Green Bay, so I was a city employee for 26 years, and I've been an alder for 10 years. So I've been involved in the city government and administration for 36 years, which makes me sound older, but it is what it is. So I've done that. I enjoy public service very much, and my first 8 years on council was very much public service. I really enjoyed that. The last 2 years have been a little tougher, and I will admit that I had to think twice. I looked in the mirror and wondered, do I really want to do this again? And I came around and said yes, but I'm here to serve. I've been involved in many committees. I'm involved in volunteer organizations. I used to be the president of the Brown County Historical Society, as well as the Brown County Trust for Historic Preservation. I'm on a group called Circles Green Bay, which is a nonprofit that looks at poverty from the angle of the person who needs help. I'm an ally. The person who is the group leader is the person who needs help. So we look at how to teach how to fish rather than giving a fish, and we've helped a lot of people do that. So I'm also in a group called Strike a Chord, the nonprofit. We're trying to get a music hall of fame in the area as a tourist attraction. We have a lot of rich cultural history in Green Bay, and I'd like to touch on that, all genres of music. So that's it briefly. I'm married. I have my wife Martha. I got 2 children, Ian and Emily, and we still get together for holidays.
Great. We'll start with the first question. Do you believe your race has been impacted by partisanship? Can you list pros or cons depending on your answer?
It has been an interesting race. It's probably no secret that recently there were some attack ads that came out. I did vote at City Council that I was disappointed in some of the recent elections, not so much that I was here to overturn anything, but I just felt we could have handled things better. In April of 2020, I thought we could have got the National Guard here. I think we could have done a few other things that would have made the election a lot easier. So with that being said, there were some parties out there that decided that I'm a threat to democracy, and I'm here to overthrow the right to vote. No such thing. I love this country. I love living in Green Bay. And has it been more partisan? I would say yes. But normally I look at federal and state elections as being more of this type of dialogue. Locally we shouldn't be tied to that. In my campaign literature, I stated that potholes don't care about partisanship. They just want to be filled. And I had many issues. In fact, I've got a list here from 2012, 40 different issues that citizens in District 10 gave to me. And I read this over, and there's probably 35 of them that are still relevant today. So my goal is to try to do the best I can on each of these issues. 30 seconds. I got more time. I got some stories. A little tongue in cheek here. Some friends said, "Mark, you got to come up with a better name for a campaign." And I thought, well, my last name being Steuer, I thought, I live on the West Side. How about West Side Steuer? And oh well, I apologize for that. And then somebody said, well, that could be about gang violence and things like that. And I said, yes, but there's a love story there too.
And that's your 30 seconds. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark, next question. Should the city continue to use TIF districts, tax incremental financing, or TIFs, to support economic development? Are there other ways the city can incentivize economic development?
Well, TIF, like Alder Johnson said before, is one of the few tools that we have at the city to have development. Normally, when you look at TID or TIF, you look at, we can go up to 12% of our equalized value in the city of Green Bay. Right now, our TIF rate is at about 5 to 6%, so we're still well under. And I keep my eyes close on that. I talk to our finance department quite often and try to find out, are we on track? If we get a little away from that, then we might have to come up with a different pattern. But I look at things like business retention. We're always talking about economic development. We need to retain the businesses that we do have. That's one big thing. And TIF is one of those things where you give a break to these new businesses that are coming in. So that over a period of time, in fact, this whole area up here, the rail yard district, we're talking almost $100 million of assessed value that we're going to have, besides having a big box store. So that's all very important to look at. So TIF is very important. I'll support it as long as it stays within reason. I still have more time. My wife usually says you hobnob too much, so I can keep going, but I just feel that TIF is a very important project.
Do you believe oversight of city elections as it exists is inadequate? Let me ask this again. I'm not reading correctly.
Yeah,
it's been a couple hours of this. Do you believe oversight of city elections as it exists is adequate? If not, what would you change? Part 2, would you allow a third-party entity to be involved in the election process again?
Well, it's no secret that it's been an unusual couple of years. We've had a pandemic, we've had various issues. In fact, one of the things that happened, I think, at the election a couple of years ago was that we had 33,000 absentee ballots that came forward. Normally in an election, we get about 3,000. And that really taxed the city to the max as far as trying to get enough help. We had offices, other departments in the city that worked many hours trying to help the clerk's office. But like I said, I kind of stated my piece on that. I feel that, and I worked at Central Count, 2 years ago. I just did my job. I just sat down and counted the wards that I was assigned to do. I didn't feel like it was really that bad in terms of all the way around, but I wasn't there the entire time. Third parties, like Alder Johnson had stated earlier today, we need to, let the city run the election. The election is what it is. I had some special needs clients said that, they need drop boxes, and those are illegal now, according to the state. I kind of rely on what the courts say. I don't always agree with them 100%, but I think it's important that, if the state says this is the way you do it, well, then it's the way you do it. So don't try to tip the apple cart on that. But I really think that, the last election that we had an issue with a mistype. And my last thought was that we don't need any problems at all, no matter how small. We just need to do the election. Let's do it right. And I chair the Protection and Policy Committee, and we're working on ways with the clerk's office and and the city to make sure that these things don't happen again. And so we're working tightly with them, and I think we'll do good. So.
Next question, knowing the reality of inflation, how will you approach the next city budget with taxpayers and the rising cost of everything in mind?
Well, it is true that inflation is there. You know, price of materials is going up, gas is going up. Families, you know, my family, we shop at a different store because we can't afford to go where we used to. It's just the nature of the fact of life. As far as budgets, being on 10, I've navigated 10 city budgets, and 8 of those budgets, taxes did not go up at all. And I think that was a big problem. I mean, and now we're suffering for it because, you know, pay me now or pay me later, like the commercial goes, and it really got to a point where we didn't raise taxes. And everything's fine, everything's good. Well, it bites, and then bit us hard. We ended up having to raise taxes the last couple of years. And I don't mind paying my share of taxes. You know, the fact is Green Bay has a lot of the services, the central city. There's a lot of onus, a lot of pressure on Green Bay for these services. A lot of the surrounding communities don't have those issues, and we have to deal with that. So I do agree that we have to look at the county. The county needs to help us on some of these other issues. As far as inflation, I have a feeling we have some ARPA money out there that we're going to try to do creative methods to utilize that and try to help with the inflation as well. So my feeling is I'm thinking it's a short-term thing. You know, I think things will turn around. It's like even watching your retirement portfolio. It goes up, it goes down, stay the course. And that's what I'm saying.
What do you believe has been done and what should continue to be done to address areas in the city that are prone to flooding?
Well, you know, we talked about the Fox River, the East River. You know, there's a lot of issues that have happened with that over time. I'm going to anchor to something completely different. My District 10 is probably more residential than most districts. It has 4,000 homes. It's very residential. And I deal with anywhere from 5 to 8 issues every spring of neighbors, 3 or 4 neighbors, you know, adjoining neighbors, talking about, we have flooding in our backyard because this neighbor built up a burn, or this pipe is plugged up, or this and that. And what happens is if you get these localized flooding issues all over your neighborhoods, eventually that's going to trickle down and cause problems at the East River and also at the Fox River. So I'm going to look at it from a little different angle. I'm going to look at it from the fact that we need to handle these individual neighborhood issues. And a lot of times the neighbors are just looking for, they want to be listened to, and I've done that already. I've gone out 3 or 4 different groups and said, look, what are we going to do here? Somebody might have broke a pipe. We have the water company, we have water, we have utilities like gas and electric, we have public works. We'll have 4 or 5 different groups go in, do utility work, somebody damages a pipe, and then we have to try to figure out whose fault was that. And a lot of times it's not you. And there's not documentation that really points out to that. And I'm going to be making sure that when work is done, I want to make sure that the city tells us, okay, this contractor, we hired them, and have a track record so we can back that up. Because a lot of citizens feel like they're paying extra money out of their own pocket and they shouldn't have to. So I would deal with it at these localized issues and try to take care of it there.
What is the city's role in establishing affordable housing? Are you concerned about the price of rentals in the city of Green Bay?
Definitely. One thing that, I'll bring up another point that maybe nobody else has brought up. I have 4,000 homes, like I said, in my district. I have many folks who are widows, retired, older folks that say, I can't keep up my house anymore. They're in their house. They said, we need more affordable senior housing, for example. So one of the thoughts I had was to look at, for example, like the All-In Corporation over on Bell Avenue. Very large building, 200,000 square feet. I'm all about adaptive reuse. So I'll be looking at along Belt Avenue, along Military Avenue, looking at buildings that are there that may be vacant or underutilized, and see if we can maybe do something with senior housing, for example. Making that community maybe a little farmer's market, some music, some other mixed uses. You know, we need to look at what we have and try to utilize those. So I'm all about adaptive reuse, and I really think that we could do something for senior housing. If some of these seniors would move out of their homes, that would open up more homes to buy. Right now, I live in a ranch home that I bought in 1989. I bought it for 1993. I bought it for $89,000. People on either side of me just sold their house for $240,000 each. And I'm just sitting there going, wow, you know, my house is okay, but you know, what are you going to do? So if I work on my house and sell it, then I have to find some place to live, and it's unfathomable. You can't do it. So definitely looking at some modified housing throughout the city, and that building report that Alder Johnson talked to, I'm looking at that as well, and we're trying to look at maybe a 4, 5 to 7 year plan, trying to come up with some good strategies, and I'll be working on that.
How important is the perception or even reality of crime when it comes to the quality of life in a neighborhood? What can you tell your constituents that you are committed to doing when it comes to reducing gun and drug-related crime?
Well, that's a good point, Rhonda. It's a good question. The number one issue that citizens told me when I was campaigning, and I hit, not physically hit, but I went to 2,000 homes over the last 3 weeks. So I had shin splints, but I'll be good. I'll be fine. Anyway, so as far as the violence, they said that's the number one issue. It was speeding, inattentive driving, and gun violence. So the recent shots that happened over at Hubbard Street, Mr. Rob Miller and myself walked over there. It's just east of my district, and I met with a few of the folks in the neighborhood, talked to them about it. I went to the police station when they had a press conference. Ended up talking to about 25 to 30 neighbors there. They wanted to be heard, and I also was part of the library discussion with the police and about 150 folks from the area. I think we appeased quite a bit of some of their fears initially. What I found out is a lot of this gun violence, you think it's drug activity or gang violence, whatever you want to call it, people coming in from out of town, but found out that some of it might be like the social media war. Somebody might say something wrong to somebody, they get angry about it, so hey, I'm going to go shoot your house. Oh, great. So there, you know, as far as violent crime, we have some, but as far, you know, some of these incidents have been isolated. We've had a couple of them, but it's not, I don't think it's a pattern that will be necessarily that bad. And a couple more police officers would help. We're understaffed that way, and I think if we can get a few more people walking the streets too. I'd like to have more beat cops and really get into the neighborhoods and get to know people.
There's a considerable number of individuals in our community staying in shelters who are experiencing homelessness. The number is considerable and doesn't include individuals who are living in cars, storage units, on friends' couches. Has the city done enough to support these individuals? How can you as a council member work to improve that? And I'm going to tweak this a little bit and ask an assist from Rhonda if I need it, based on Alderman Johnson's answer. If I understood him, Rhonda, he was suggesting the city is to a degree taking the burden of something of a regional housing problem. Would you agree with that?
My recollection of what he said was that the county, a lot of the services really are under the guise of what the county provides.
Right. Right. Yeah, okay.
Right.
That the city is right. Correct. Thank you. But do you agree with that?
Yes, I do, in the sense that you know, the human services budget for the county is actually bigger than the city budget of Green Bay. So a lot of the onus should fall on them. This issue is near and dear to my heart. Back in 2013, as the chairperson for the Protection and Welfare Committee, we were asked to do a study on homelessness in Green Bay. And we had 40 different professional individuals, 3 different teams, and we were looking to get a resource center in Green Bay that would take the onus off the library and such. In my research, and a lot of times when I look at a topic or any kind of issue, I like to do research. I enjoy that. And I found out that there were 16 systemic causes or issues with homelessness. I used to think, well, you're just maybe no job, maybe alcoholism, but it was affordable wage, it was single mothers, it was alcohol, it was substance abuse, it was any number of things, and it was almost overwhelming to try to deal with all that. I used to go on homeless counts, early in the morning, and there was a fellow in a cardboard box, I'll never forget it. We woke him up and he jumped up and he said, I'm late for work. I remember going, you're late for work and you're in a cardboard box. So, I feel sorry for the people that cannot afford, they're working 2 jobs and they're still homeless. One thing real quick, at my Protection and Policy Committee, Alder Gelda had brought something forward where we kept track of what was going on with the homeless population, and we found out there was maybe 6 to 8 people that were chronically problems. I hate to use the word problem, but they would crop up every time. They refused help. They were out there, and it was just a handful. Most of the people we were working well with the various shelters that are out there. So it's a work in progress. We're still working on it.
Last question.
Last question.
Yes. Please explain your understanding of how road construction and maintenance are paid for in Green Bay. Also, are you satisfied with the progress that is being made?
Well, Mr. Miller brought up something that was very interesting. About 3 or 4 years ago, I approached our Public Works Department, Director Grenier, and asked for the PASER report. And the PASER report is about 110 pages, very thick document, and to look at our road conditions. And I spent a lot of time on my own. I'm not looking for a pat on the back, but I wanted to get some information. So I took that report and I made a spreadsheet and I put down a list of all the roads in each of the aldermanic districts. I sent a copy of that to each alder person. They looked at it and utilized it accordingly. Mr. Miller went a little further with his. He got some graphs and things like that, but it is an issue. I got Bond Street in my district. When I tell people I go down Bond Street near Helen Keller, it's like water skiing on a minefield. I mean, it's bad. We're finally doing the road. It took 10 years. I've been begging. Now they're going to do the road. So, the problem that happens with some of this is that we've only done 1 to 1.5% a year of roads. If we did 3 to 3.5%, that'd be 4.5, 5, 6 miles of roads a year. We're only doing 2 or 3, if that. The wheel tax, I voted for that. The wheel tax more or less just appeases the assessments that citizens get. There was one citizen that had a $55,000 assessment, road assessment. That's unfair. We can't do that. So my goal is to make sure that we get the roads done. I've had about 4.5 miles of roads done in my district in 10 years, which isn't too bad. So a lot of people think everything's destroyed. It's not. There are a lot of good roads here, but the ones that are bad we have to really focus on, and we'll continue to work on that.
Can I ask you to clarify how many miles of roads are in your district?
In my district?
When you say there's 4.5 miles that have been done,
well, the first 450 miles of roads in Green Bay, as far as my district, it might be 38 to 42, something like that. So I've had 3.5 miles done already, and I'm going to have another 1.25 miles done this year. So if you look at the percentages, that's not too bad. So I think there's this perception that, everything's falling apart. The big thing that I want to see happen is not just the fact that it fixed the road. Roads last 30, 35 years, and a lot of times we bond for these, and by the time we pay off the bond, we have to do the road again. You want to make sure that you do maintenance on these roads. So like the seams that you see in roads, a lot of times if they're not sealed correctly, the grass and weeds will grow up. Over a period of time, that'll split the concrete. We need to jump on that. We need to really look at that. So preventive maintenance, that's what I want to say.
That's it?
Unless we want to give him a close.
Oh, what?
Oh, yeah, that's a fair question, but you can provide a closing statement.
Well, again, thank you for this opportunity to speak. I truly enjoy public service. I really enjoy trying to work with citizens, and locally, if you think about it, you could talk to your state reps, you can talk to your U.S. senators, but locally is where things get done. That's just the way I feel. I've got 9,000 citizens in my district. That's a lot of citizens. So we don't have a chance to speak to everyone. We just can't. So the only time I really hear from a lot of these folks is when they need help. And over time, I've actually become more than just a representative. We've become friends, with folks. And a lot of it's building relationships. So I enjoy that. I enjoy, coming together, communicating, trying to work on things, and being civil. I kiddingly tell people I fight for civility. I know that's an oxymoron, but I do. I want people to get along, be kind, work together. And when attacks come, I try to keep them in the context that they're done. I'll finish with one statement here. This is something that I had on some of my campaign literature, but it says, "Let us not seek the Republican answer or the Democratic answer, but the right answer. Let us not seek to fix the blame for the past. Let us accept our responsibility for the future." That was John F. Kennedy. So that kind of responds to that. I have more if you'd like, but I think that'll be it.
Is there on that?
I could go all day, but I won't.
And with that, that does conclude our candidate forum debates. I want to thank all of the candidates over the last two Sundays. Oh, one more. Sorry, blew up. Should have stopped me. That's it, I'm fired.
Okay, that concludes District 10.
Thank you, Jason.
District 10, we'll be back in a couple minutes with District 11. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm not the only one to screw up.
What happened? Oh, I thought you didn't ask all the questions for some reason. I just
No, we didn't.
No,